My name's Gabriel Biderman. You've now captured the eclipse. What do you do with it? Is it done? Is that it? Have you experienced it? I don't think so. And if you haven't watched our previous videos on how to capture the eclipse and our tips on it, click on the link below, because now we're going to take you to the editing phase. You know, there are so many ways to edit, to shoot and edit the eclipse. Today I'm going to focus on really what we're all focusing on during this totality is getting in that range of totality and enjoying the corona, okay? And the corona might seem like that's the easiest thing to capture once you get there, but there's actually quite a bit of finessing that you can do to bring out a lot of detail in the shot, okay? So let's get into this. All right, so first, a couple tips on how we are capturing and preparing for that corona, and we're looking at the images I've got here, and I've got a series of images that I bracketed the shot, right? So we're set up with our camera and our solar filter, we're tracking it, then when we hit totality, we take off the filter, and then for this eclipse in 2024, you have approximately 4 minutes. You know, check your region, but you'll have 4 minutes to really enjoy that corona. The more you get to the center of totality, the longer it can be, and the more southern it is, okay? So that seems like a long time, and we might be freaking out on the way there because we've now taken the filter, we've got to adjust that exposure, okay? Yes, you'll probably have to adjust the exposure about 4 to 6 stops. It's not as wild as you might think, because we've already been lowering the exposure or opening up the exposure to let more light in as the sun has been getting dimmer, okay? So we really have to, when we take it off, we'll look at it, it'll be bright, probably brighter than what you see right here on my screen, okay? And we want to make sure that we're getting as much information as we can. Remember, those high megapixel cameras will give us the better dynamic range as well, but we also want to bracket. And first, so I want to show you my bracketing that I made during this capture. All right, so first off, here is a 2-second shot at 422. Now, this was my first eclipse. You might be saying, Gabe, why are you at f22? Well, I was really focused on capturing the diamond ring. And to heighten the diamond ring effect, you really want to stop down your aperture. You want to have it at least f16 or f22, and then you'll get a bigger spike than most people. Otherwise, it'll just be a regular spike. But we want a nice big diamond ring, you know. You got a big ring coming at you. So I don't think I made that adjustment till later, but that's okay. I want to show you that you can survive. Here is a 2-second shot, and let's take a look at it. It's actually sharp enough, right? I mean, what's nice about this 2-second shot is this corona, and we're getting that movement and glow of that corona with this longer exposure. Now again, I could have also, if I was at f8 now, it probably wouldn't have been, it might have been a 30th of a second. So again, just making sure you have that bracket and enough information that we're getting enough of that corona. And like I said in my previous video, look how much that extends past the sun, right? You can fit like 2 to 3 rows of suns around the sun, and that is where the corona is extending. So that's why we don't, again, want to shoot with that super telephoto. Here I am at 301 millimeter on a APS-C sensor. Okay, so here's the 2-second shot, and I believe the only thing I'm adjusting here is the shutter speed. Okay, so 2 seconds, there's 1 second, significant difference. There's a ½ second, and now notice with a ½ second, we're starting to see those Bailey beads, that little sun flare over there, come out and extend. You know, we're getting the color and detail of that. okay, and that's at a half a second. Here's a quarter second, okay, and the corona is still looking good, right? We're still seeing the corona extended as far as it has been. But now here okay, so sorry, that's the processed version of it. This is the raw version of that half second, or quarter second one. And then we've got a 15th of a second, 30th of a second, and a 60th of a second, and then one last one at 1/25th of a second. Now, when we're looking at these, and again, I am bracketing these one-stop increments, okay, and that's what I would advise, one-stop increments. I'm doing this manually. You can obviously go into a burst rate and bracket as well, if you find that easier. My issue with that is sometimes I can't get out of the bracket, you know, and so I want to make sure I can quickly and easily just bracket where I need to go. This was one of my first series of the brackets, and so we've got, and these last two especially, look at that. The corona is gone, but we do have just nice, sharp line, and we really see those, the flames, the Bailey beads from the sun there, really, really in all of its glory and detail there. So again, I took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shots, bracketing from 2 seconds to a 60th or 1/25th of a second, okay? That's pretty extreme. You might not have to do this as much, but you know, again, I had about a little over 2 minutes to do it, and why not? This was my first eclipse. I wanted to see what I could capture with a longer exposure and get any sort of movement in that corona or detail in the shadows. And then I wanted to go down to a shorter exposure and really make sure the image was sharp and make sure I was getting any those highlights weren't burned out. Now, the image that I decided to process in the end was a single image, and that was this image, and you can see the final version of it right here, and this is the half a second version, okay? And this, to me, gave the balance of that beautiful corona, as well as I can see the red of the Bailey's beads, the sun flare there on the, you know, in 3 locations, and so yeah, and this is the processed version of it, and I'm not even going to process again. This is something I processed in 2017. I'm going to go at it now and process it just like I would in 2024. So here is the image. Again, we're at number 157. So let's go to the raw file right here. And obviously, one of the first decisions I'm going to make is a crop. Okay, so I'm going to crop in there, and I was shooting in the middle, and I think it's often good to compose in the middle. But in the end, I think that's one of the most boring places that we can put the subject. So when we go in Lightroom and put up our crop marks, we can see our power points, which are right here, these 4 power points. So I'm going to crop this in a way that I'm not losing any of the corona, but I'm also playing to the power points of the crop. And look at, I can, even with this almost like a 16:9 sort of crop, I can pretty much get it in there. Now I can kind of, maybe if I think this side has got too much negative space, but what I would say to you is that's good negative space there. Maybe that's where you throw a quote or some words, a description or something like that. You know, so don't just throw away all that negative space. It's a nice balance, and let's see about that crop right there. Now we're getting even a little bit closer into the scene. We probably magnified, you know, about 50% in there. And this is what we're looking at right now. And to me, this to me is a little bit more interesting of a crop. So, okay, we got that. And again, if I look at, now I'm going to go into looking at it 100%. Okay. And with this, I do see a nice balance. If we look up here in our histogram, and we can kind of see If we click on the arrow on the right-hand side, on the red, this is what it's showing us in Lightroom, is it's showing us highlights without detail. Okay, so these are unrecoverable blown out highlights here. I'm okay with these highlights. I'm not going to worry about these highlights. I mean, I could also look at the next exposure down, 1/8 of a second or 1/15 of a second if I was, and that's where the bracketing comes into play. But for me, this part of it, of the scene, has the least detail, is kind of very contrasty between the black sun and, you know, the sunlight coming around the moon there. So I'm fine with that. And it doesn't read as a band. Okay, most importantly, it doesn't read as a band. Now, most of this, as you can see, is, most of these are darks here. And we can look at our exposure. We can kind of shift our exposure back and forth a little bit. But I kind of think we're in a good spot. And generally speaking, when I go into the develop mode of Lightroom and I'm in the basic panel right here, what are we going to attack first? So we've made the crop, we've seen where the highlights are being blown out. What else does this need? Well, let's see what we can do here. Let me take the shadows and let's see if, opening up the shadows doesn't reveal a ton more there. Bringing down the highlights also doesn't, banding starts to happen soon. We could also even go to a tone curve if we really wanted to finesse it more. When I go into the tone curve, what I usually do is extend these, the blacks and the whites as far as they can go, which is 90 and 10. And this can be a little bit more of a finesse way to adjust your exposure. And here we can see, now it's really, I'm seeing less banding and I'm kind of taking down those highlights. It's getting a little bit closer. So I think that looks pretty good right there. Let's take a look at the lights. The lights I'm gonna leave alone. The lights I'm gonna leave alone because I'm starting to see again some of that banding come in. So I'm gonna leave the lights alone. The highlights were good. Now let's look at the darks. Okay, the darks are kind of in a good place because again, look at that banding happening right away. Not gonna do that. And let's look at the shadows. The shadows, let's see, let's go back. I double click to go back to the center. I could bring it in a little bit. I could bring it in a little bit, just like that, take it down. And I think now we've kind of, for me, finessed the overall exposure of what we have. So let's go back up to the basic panel because there's a couple other things that I like playing with. So I've kind of, again, used the tone curve instead of the highlight, shadows, whites, and blacks up in the first segment. And now I'm going to go to the presence section of Lightroom. This can be a very, very powerful tool, also a very dangerous tool. Wear kid gloves would be my advice with this because I think we get a little bit over enthusiastic with some of these sliders. Let's go through the sliders a little bit. Texture is going to bring sharpening across the scene, and it is not going to affect your color or contrast. It's just going to give an overall sharpening. Now, go 100% and see what it does, but know that oftentimes that's not where we want to be. With an eclipse being a sort of a surreal experience, and unlike things we've seen before, we can be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe we take the kid gloves off half. Let's do that. We'll take the kid gloves off half. And because usually I would never go beyond 30 or maybe 40, but I do see the texture, and this is always good to work these sliders at 100%, which I am right now, because we're seeing the actual effect of the pixels, okay? If you go past 100% and go to 200%, now we're looking beyond the pixels, okay? And that'll be very hard for us to make accurate decisions, especially if we want to create a print from it. Prints are being judged by 100%, okay? So I'm gonna go back here, and I really like what's happening with it at about 50, yeah, the mid 50s. Let's end here at 50. Oh, I jumped up to 62. Let's end up there. I think that in what we're looking at here, it was a subtle difference, but we're seeing the corona rays here just being defined a little bit more. Now, if we go to clarity, clarity is a structure type of sharpening, and also very, very powerful, and we can kind of see what that does, and it's doing a lot, and it's going crazy when we go to 100%. Very granular. It has a direct correlation to contrast. So back it down. We don't, as much as we might like seeing the detail in everything, I'm gonna say, let's bring that back down to something a little bit more realistic, and I'm gonna end right about 22 for the clarity. Now, dehaze offers a similar sharpening to clarity, but, and oftentimes people will use this when they think of this as a replacement for their circular polarizer, because it definitely kind of cuts through glare and haze, atmospheric haze, a little bit better than clarity and texture do. However, the more you use dehaze, you will notice that there's a shift in the contrast as well as the color, okay? And just like with a circular polarizer, when you turn the circular polarizer, your sky becomes more blue, but then can become purple. And we don't want a purple. We want it just a deep, rich blue. Same with dehaze. So let's see what's happening here. And we can see that things just get really super contrasty. Obviously, this is a black and white image, so we're not seeing that color shift that we would normally see. But I am seeing, let's see, it's like you can, and really, let's also say this is totally dealer's choice, folks, right? Everyone has different programs, everyone has different views of what they saw and how they want to interpret it. I try to look for a very naturalistic / realistic interpretation. So that's the path I'm going to be guiding you on here. So it actually looks pretty good with actually negative dehaze. I'm kind of liking where that's going, as opposed to here with when we go to bringing it more punchy, we're losing the flow of the corona. So let's go to maybe that -20, and then let's pull back out into the scene and see how that is balancing the rest of the composition. So this might dictate. Obviously, I'm not gonna, we could go up to here, right? But again, what I'm really I'm worried about is again, this banding that I'm seeing here in these levels right there. So I would like to not get any banding. And that's gonna be kind of almost where we were. I'm ending up, folks, at a +5 in dehaze, which is so minimal, you can even say, Gabe, why are you even using it? So, but I'm seeing a little bit from there. So I'm gonna keep it around there as it is. Let's take a look. Obviously, there's nothing for us to offer for vibrancy or saturation here. The only other thing I would say is, as we are looking at this 100%, I am noticing that it is a bit grainy, especially for an image that was shot at 400. So let's take a look. I don't think this needs the new noise AI reduction that Lightroom now offers. That's usually for images that are really, really noisy. This, I just want to give it a little noise massaging to get rid of that. And that can be easily found in our detail box down here. First, we've got sharpening. This is another type of sharpening that we can offer. I usually do this sharpening for output for printing. Okay, that's when otherwise I'll leave that sharpening alone. There's your AI denoise. Like I said, I would do that for images of 3200, 6400 and beyond, when it's really, really noisy. So otherwise, I'm gonna just use the manual noise reduction, and I'm going to go to the luminance noise reduction. We're also we're gonna view this at 100%, and I am going to make that noise, and then let's see it. This is again a little aggressive at 54, and we're losing the detail. It's becoming a little bit too posturized, okay? So I think we live in this digital world that we can get rid of grain, so we get rid of all of it. But grain is part of structure. Structure, is part of the lines that make up the composition. So we want to have some of those. And if I come back here, and where I'm looking is right in here, folks. This is where I'm looking at how it's affecting the noise. And I just want to smooth that out a little bit. And I'm smoothing it out at about a manual luminance noise reduction of 15. You can counterbalance that if you're losing too much detail. You can go down here and add more detail in, but usually the default setting on that is pretty good. We don't have any color noise in here, so I don't have to worry about that. So that's where I ended up with. Let's do a comparison to this image and to the processed image I did in 2017, okay? And this is it right here. Let's go see, and let's actually see it in all its glory. So again, this is the new image right here. And this is the image I did in 2017. Looks like I added some color to it. I used a little white balance to warm that up on the black and white image. I don't think I'm in that sepia phase right now. I'm more sort of just give me that starker black and white look to it. Looking at the detail, there is similar, it's about similar detail all the way around, perhaps a little bit more here. I don't think I used the curve adjustment on this image with it. This one, the corona is a little brighter on this. It's probably well retained. This newer one would probably print better because it's just got a little bit more gradation in between the highlights to the shadows there. But that's cool. I love it. This one actually looks sharper than this one. I don't know if I put a little soft filter on it or something like that. And this one looks just like I cropped in a little bit bigger on it as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this how to process the total solar eclipse. And I wish you clear skies wherever you may be on April 8th, that you may capture it and process it with ease. Thank you so much.